I'm Louise and I'm here with Leah. She's a life counsellor, a spiritual teacher, an author, and a public speaker. I recently attended some of her spiritual freedom groups on Zoom, and I was really inspired by the way that she delivered the sessions. She used a variety of methods and activities to deliver the content, and it was fun and motivating. And it made me think, who is Leah? What's her story? So I want to know, you were very passionate when you were delivering these sessions. I want to know what drives you, Leah.
Yeah, that's a lovely question, Lou. I think that, I know that as long as I can remember, I've had this belief that within all of us, there is the capacity to be happy, to be peaceful, and to be filled with love. And that's been there all the time. And for myself, learning that and working with other people in retreats, workshops, one-to-one, or whatever, there's always been that drive to help people to discover this truly beautiful place within themselves. My picture is that we are all naturally good, beautiful people, but it gets covered over, with our pain and our negative self-talk, the suffering we've been through, what life seems to have taught us about how difficult things are. But I've never yet encountered anybody where that with this kind of work, they can't rediscover who they really are, and that who they really are is good. So yeah, that's the work, and that's my passion in everything that I do.
But you've not always been a life counsellor, have you, or a spiritual teacher? You've had a totally different background. Can you tell me
Yes.
tell me your story?
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I wanted to go to university, but my mum was of the old school that thought girls really didn't need to do stuff like that. So I acquiesced, and then I went in to train in management in the John Lewis Partnership, started in Southampton. And then I was promoted very young. I seemed to quite take to this retail stuff, and I really enjoyed it. And I stayed there for 15 years in total, and gradually I became a manager and then a buyer and so on. But I came to realize that what I enjoyed most was the people. And I was really interested in how people could be happy at work, how they could be fulfilled, resolve conflict, get clear of their goals, and be part of the team. So that became stronger and stronger as time went by. I managed to persuade one of my managing directors at one point that I should be allowed to do the Institute of Personnel Management degree course as a sort of external student. It was really, really hard doing it and having a job, but that was brilliant. But it was always about the people. What makes people tick? How can they be? Yeah, already happy, peaceful, fulfilled, get on with each other, really feel connected and part of things. And I think that's just stayed with me all my life, really.
You used to live in London and you did something fantastic in your garden. What was that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, after I left John Lewis, at first I wasn't really quite sure what I wanted to do. I knew it was going to be something in the alternative world because I'd been all the time studying and going on courses and trainings and all kinds of things. But actually, what we did once I got the hang of what I wanted to do was we built a centre in our garden. We called it the Healthy Living Centre. And in those days, my focus was meditation, relaxation, massage, healthy eating, stress management. That was my way into it all. But once I'd started, I was off. I did the first one in my front room with a group of friends. And yeah, it's been my life really ever since.
But now you live in Spain. Yeah. And you also do work for the Miracle Network. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. That's a very important part of my work. The Miracle Network serves people who are students and teachers and studiers or people who are following what's called a Course in Miracles. It's too much to tell you about in this interview, but it's a channeled work that was channeled to a woman called Helen Schuckman in the 1960s, and it's an extraordinary work, and its focus is teaching us a thought system based on love to replace what they call the ego's thought system, which is based on fear. And it's fear and division and attack and pain and suffering, which seems to be so much of what the world is made up of. But this teaches a new thought system, and its fundamental practice is forgiveness, not in a religious way, really just saying, I'm going to forgive anything that I've had attack thoughts about, anything I've judged or complained or criticized, because it makes my life misery. It messes me up, and I don't want any of that. So we gradually learn to use forgiveness in that way, just to dispel any of our tendencies to put judgment out there. And it really works. And over the years, although I didn't get on with it at first, but then I came back and gradually became a teacher of it as well. And I just found it the most wonderful thing. I've never come across anything like it for clearing away all the pain and suffering from inside, actually helping me to be happy. So I pass that on, and I write for the Miracle Worker magazine. I'm speaking at their conference this year, international conference, and they're very much part of the family of A Course in Miracles. It's quite wonderful.
Yeah. You talk about international conference, but I know you also really enjoy travelling, and you've had, particularly India, I think you were saying that. Can you tell me about your influences from your travels, particularly India?
Yes. What's interesting though about India is that I had India kind of came into my life well before I ever went there. And it was many years ago, probably 28 years ago. My son was little, my son Alex, who was born here. I came across this thing called, this path called Siddha Yoga. And I went to their satsangs, which are sort of spiritual gatherings every week here in Spain. Took him along. His little dot used to sit and fall asleep on people's laps. But it was very beautiful. I learned all about the Hindu spirituality, of meditation, the teachings, and of Sanskrit chanting, which is absolutely wonderful and so joyful. So I did this for several years, and even though I had a spell back in the UK, I still continued with it. And somehow or another, what mixes together now is these beautiful devotional teachings of India with A Course in Miracles, which is much more, perhaps, no, not more, it's very philosophical, theological, and it really satisfies the mind. And but I think Siddha Yoga satisfies the heart. So I think woven together, they're quite wonderful. So by the time I went to India, which was about 8 or 9 years ago for the first time with my partner Ray, I was already steeped in all of this wonderful stuff. So it was really, really good being in India and be able to go to ashrams and to chant with the people that we stayed with for a while. They had a little altar and did all the chanting before every meal, and they were just gorgeous, gorgeous people. Joined in lots of their rituals. Absolutely lovely. So this has really, really stayed with me. So yeah, India came after I'd got into Indian spirituality. We spent 6 months there, and then we travelled again the following year for about another 6 months. And it was, yeah, most wondrous experience.
What other things did you learn on that travel about how to live?
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's very practical, this. It's not a theoretical life in India. It's very challenging, from travelling hours and hours and hours on Indian trains through to, life is very, very simple. And I learnt that there is nothing external that makes you happy, that your happiness is your own responsibility inside yourself, and you have to somehow find inside you what it is that doesn't die, because everything in the world changes and dies. So when we put our reliance on external things, we're just eternally inviting suffering into our lives, because they will change and they will die. Whatever it is will be gone. But there is something inside, this deep spirit that is unchanging, infinite, eternal, beautiful. And that was what I think I got in touch with there. And even with just simple things like, you can't have a lot of material possessions. We had a motorbike, so how much kit were we going to take around on that? So it was really a change of clothes, toothbrush, toothpaste, coconut oil, which is really useful for loads of things, shoes, and what else? A comb. Yeah. And actually, it's amazing. You can manage without anything else. And that was like a shedding of all the things I thought were necessary in order to
Nothing
live
important,
life.
yeah.
They're not. And nothing external was that important. It was the important thing was relying on ourselves from within. That was wonderful teaching.
And you've brought those ideas into your life, into Spain. I know when we sat in your beautiful garden, I know you live a simple life. Can you explain how you live here in Spain and your everyday routine?
Yes, it is part of it. It's part of a philosophy of living lightly on the earth, of not taking too much from the earth, of things being simple and natural. So we've got quite a lovely big piece of land, lots of trees and flowers and organic vegetable garden. We compost everything. We have a compost loo, which is amazing, and we have spring water, solar electricity. Instead of living in our house, we live in a Mongolian yurt, which is wonderful. It's a very beautiful thing, and you feel so close to the earth, so part of the earth. So as far as we possibly can, we have natural things rather than man-made things, and the limited as possible amount of chemicals and so on. So yes, a very simple life, and we're really, really happy with that.
So you will stay here in Spain?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know, but I think it's very likely. I think, what about in 10, 20 years, and I get a bit old and doddery, I don't know what that would be like. But I have a sort of the feeling that it will be all right.
Yeah.
There's something about this life keeps you well. I think the body stays well if the mind is well. So I think we'll stay here, and I'll be very happy if we do.
And how will you develop your work then in the future? How do you see your work moving on, or staying the same? Or
I I don't have a picture of big goals or things that I have to achieve. I love what I do, except that coming to me recently has been the feeling that I want to do more work here. There's not a lot of people very interested in alternative things, but there's a few, and I'm beginning to meet people like you and a few other friends, and I just have this feeling that I'm going to be doing some workshops and teaching some of the things that I've learned, like to sort of pass that on to other people. So I think that might happen. I don't know. I just trust that if I do what I love doing right now, that means today's good, and if today's good, tomorrow will be due. It just naturally evolves,
Lovely. Now, if people would like to do some of your Zoom sessions or spiritual freedom groups, or just to get in contact with you, how can they get hold of you?
Okay. The best thing is just to write to me. I have a website, but it's much more personal if you just write. So you can write to me at Lia, Lia .ichooselove@gmail.com. Or if you want to look at the website, it's www.liachooseslove.co.uk. So, but do get in touch, anybody. It's lovely to have personal contact with people.
And I look forward to joining some more of your sessions, hopefully live, otherwise not on Zoom.
Yes, that will be lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lou.